Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish Prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.
So welcome back to Through a Scottish Prism. I hope this finds you and yours well. Been a week since we had a wee chat. Nice to be back with you. Lots to talk about, lots going on, and lots we want to discuss. Before we get started, let me just bring in the crew. We are one down today. Our Yvonne is at a huge conference down in London on the with the Afghanis. It's an Afghanistan conference, which is a very, very popular lady, our Yvonne, and she's making a speech at this precise moment. And if she finishes that in time, she will be joining us. But I'm sorry to say, at the moment, there is no Shirley Temple, although we have given Eva instructions. Whether she carries them out remains to be seen. So without further ado, let's bring in our substitute, Shirley Temple. It's our Eva. Eva, how are you?
And good night, Roddy. Thank you very much. But I think there's somebody else far better equipped to be Shirley today than me.
Yeah, wait, yes, we might have another surprise for you, someone with a good mullet. Nice to see you. Lots to talk about Eva this week, with or without our Yvonne. And of course, over in Edinburgh, there in the old capital city, we have Mr. Conan himself, our weatherman.
How you doing, Roddy?
Always better for seeing you, my friend, and you.
I'm very well. Yeah.
Good, excellent. Sorry, the weather's almost Spanish.
Almost.
Yeah, well, let's find out what the weather's like in North Dakota. Philip.
It's roasting here, man. Absolutely roasting. It's killing me. I need to get a haircut. It's too hot under this mullet, man. No, it's beautiful. It's going to be 100 degrees again today. We're off to the lakes at some point, so should be good. And there's a holiday on the Monday.
You're becoming very Americanized, Mr. Boswell.
Aye. It's a bit strange. You know what happens? You know, people go on holiday and they come back after a holiday and it's like, oh yeah, I went to the States and had a great time. Shut up, you knob. You know, that's the usual reaction. But anyway, that's life for you in Scotland. No, it's
you were passing out with laughing there.
Well, remember, I'm Spartacus. I'm Shirley Temple. I'm Shirley Temple. This is my retort to that one. But it's too hot, actually. I need to take it off.
I have just been informed by Techie that our Yvonne has arrived.
Ah!
So Shirley Temple, now you've got to keep that on for our Yvonne arrive and then take it off.
Right, okay.
So come in, Yvonne. How are you? Where are you? We can hear you. We can't see you. Oh, I'll bid you. Oh, here she is.
Morden in London.
Go on your camera head.
It sounds like an interesting conference she's on, so...
It sounds like one of your parties that you don't turn up on, you know what I mean?
It does a wee bit.
Total, as you know. She's like me, she doesn't drink. Anyway, let's continue. Can I just start on a somber note, if I may, ladies and gentlemen? You're probably all aware that Sandy McCracken, one of the Yes Bikers, met with a terrible accident and unfortunately passed away. And he was, a good guy, one of the great Yes Bikers. And so our condolences go to his family and friends, and another one that won't see the day of reckoning for the Union. Rest in peace, Sandy. We'll carry the fight on without you.
Aye, man.
Okay, on that note, and I'd like to get started. Now, I did say to the viewers that we would be talking about Scotland United because there's been a lot of confusion about it, Eva. What actually Scotland United is about, and what how it actually works. Scotland United is, in my opinion, is the only way with a unified political faith we will get independence. No one party, be SNP, ALPA, ISP, SSP, can do it on their own. Would you concur?
There is no doubt about that, none whatsoever. There are no circumstances in which one party, i.e. the SNP, is going to get a majority of the popular vote. It will not happen. And to have legitimacy on the international stage, on Westminster and at Holyrood, to have independent supporting parties not only winning a majority of seats, you need them also vitally to attain a majority of the popular vote, because anything less than that will not be likely to achieve the international recognition that we will so desperately need to assist us in the context of negotiating the independence settlement, which has to follow after that majority vote. So Scotland United, where there's one independent supporting candidate on a one line on the ballot paper that says Scotland United for an independent Scotland, is the only credible answer. What is not credible is to insist that one party can do it alone. They never have done it, they never will. And the worst of all possible outcomes, in fact, would be for one party to have a majority of seats, but not to have a majority of the popular vote, because that gives the Unionists massive credibility internationally, because they can say, well, actually, you don't really have a majority. It's just been done by the quirk that is the voting system in Westminster being first past the post. So to have something that sticks, that guarantees Scottish independence, that guarantees that our voice will be heard internationally, is to have candidates standing on that ticket with that one line, so that the entire world can see that Scotland has overwhelmingly voted for independence. Scotland will not vote overwhelmingly to give the SNP a majority of the popular vote, because the SNP are now sitting in the 30s in the polls. They're nowhere near the odd. They are not heading anywhere in that direction. Some of the speeches that are being made as we record this just now would indicate, I understand so far they've said stuff like independence is inevitable, Westminster disrespects us. That's not the oratory that gets you independence. These are not the people to lead us to independence on their own. They need to do teamwork, team effort, pick up the phone and speak to the leaders of all the independent supporting parties, every one of them. And that's the way to do it. That's how you unite a movement. You unite a movement by bringing everybody together under a common umbrella or under one banner. Elite individuals who think that they know better. So, yep, it has to be Scotland United. Nothing else will get us independence. Nothing.
No, I agree. Lloyd, earlier this week, and I don't know if we've got it, I've sent a message to Techie to see if we can find it. I put out a tweet and I said to him, this is the only way forward. However, I am open. If someone's got a better idea, if anyone else can tell me another way of doing this, please tell me. I've got to say, after 5 days, Lloyd, no one came up with an alternative suggestion. I did get the usual ones like, oh, I could never vote for the SNP because of what they're doing with GRR, and oh, I couldn't vote for the SSP because, you know, I don't like communists, and I couldn't vote because I don't like Alex. All the different, why I can't do Scotland, but no one's been able to say, oh, Scotland United, I don't agree with the concept, or Scotland United would fail, or here's an alternative, you know, everyone dress up as a donkey and by next Thursday we'll be independent. Nothing, not a thing. Have you got an alternative?
There isn't an alternative. In real terms, there isn't an alternative. And to some degree, we've got to learn from the circumstances of what happened in Catalonia in 2018, where they had a referendum that got them no international support whatsoever because they didn't reach that critical number of the popular vote. Huge abstentions and indeed not enough people has left them in a situation where their leadership are in exile. You know, Puigdemont still can't go back to Spain. And in some ways, we have to learn from that what you do is draw people together under the single badge, which is the saltire of Scotland United. That will deliver us the majority of the votes. And the majority of votes, as Eva said, is absolutely crucial. But we have to have the Scottish National Party recognising that it must work alongside all the other parties, not just the Greens who they're in government with, but with the other parties as well, to maximise that vote and make it clear to people that this time round you're voting for the idea. You're not voting for the party. You can put your X by the ISP, the SSP, the SNP, ALPA, any of the parties, but you're voting for the idea. And the idea is we become an independent country. Scotland United is the only game in town.
Yeah, it's absolutely right. So we're going to come on to the marches all under one banner, the Business for Scotland, Hope Over Fear. We're coming on to that in a minute, and I've got very strong opinions on that. And it feeds into the Scotland United. But you, as an SNP man of a long time, can you think of anything better? But before you answer, can I just say hello, Yvonne? We started without you. We shouldn't have, I know, but we did. Welcome, glad you made it. Phil, can you think of anything better than Scotland United at the ballot box? And let's not confuse it with a constitutional convention where we bring in the trade unions, Civil Scotland, SSRG, all under one, all the different groups, and bring them in, as opposed to the political wing where you put one line in every manifesto, and the parties between themselves say in this seat it will be SNP. And let's be honest, the SNP will be in most of the seats. That's just a fact. I say that as someone who's in a different party, but that's the reality. And that's the fact. But horses for courses. Is there a better way?
I don't see one, and as you've already stated, you've put the challenge down, but there's been no answer to it. The key issue here is unification. It's why the Yes movement almost achieved a miracle under the circumstances, and the SNP are not doing that. We, the SNP, did it under Alex Salmond with the Yes movement. So why is Nicola and Humza not doing the same with Scotland United? To understand it, people should maybe read Neil Hanvey's column titled "A Fly in the Ointment." Holyrood is a branch of the UK administration. Power reserved is power retained. We all know this, or we should know it by now anyway. Devolution does not improve the lives of the people of Scotland, as the purse strings controlled by the Westminster government are continually being closed in real terms. That means that even when the funds returned to the Scotland are increased because of the cost of living increases, inflation and the like, the funds are actually worth less. You get less bang for your buck. It's really that simple. And if you want proof, look at the critique on Jers and that confidence trick. But Neil in his column, and there's a quote he did that I like. He said, "Since the days after the 2014 independence referendum, the fly in the ointment of Scotland's advance to statehood has been the absence of a clear mechanism with which to honour the commitment given in paragraph 18 of the Smith Commission report, which states, without caveat, it's agreed that nothing in this report prevents Scotland becoming an independent country in the future should the people of Scotland choose." Now ask yourself, folk, how best to achieve that? And it is not the route the SNP are currently going down. Unification, we saw it. We've proven it to be true under the Yes movement. We know the euphoric feeling that we all had when we were part of a movement that included all people from all walks of life, all stripes, rich, poor, business, the amount of groups that were coming up, pensioners for independence, lecturers for independence. It was magnificent. Why? Because it was about one unifying factor, the independence of our people and our nation. So Neil's Scotland Self-Determination Bill seeks to introduce equality of opportunity to the Scottish people, with that currently enjoyed by the people in Northern Ireland. That's another good movement he speaks about in this. But really, all of this is just so much talk, and the real objective is independence. And if we're admitting to that to ourselves, and if the SNP are true to themselves, then they will start going on other marches, start being supportive of the other parties and working with them. And this is the only and the best way, but they just don't want to relinquish power, because power is money, and they are not they're really probably not in a position until the leadership of SNP has changed and we get rid of the shysters and those within the SNP that have infiltrated, that are diverting us from the cause of independence. Then they won't go down the obvious route, which is to support Scotland United, because like the Yes movement, Scotland United is dangerous because it unites the people in a cause and all under one banner, if you'll excuse the reference, and that's what the establishment fears. People who figured out that when the people stick together, we win, and that's what's required here.
Absolutely right. Absolutely right. Yvonne, do you have any alternative? Can you think of a better way for us to find our independence, better than a Scotland United campaign where everyone that believes in independence unites behind one candidate in each constituency, be that at Holyrood, be that at Westminster, and we fight for one thing, one line in a manifesto, which is independence. This is a mandate to negotiate our independence.
I've sat in a room in Morden today, which is at the end of the Northern Line, with a room full of Afghans who are looking for a solution to the Afghan problem. And there was just one word for them, and some of them didn't like it, and that was unity. And unity is the only thing that will bring people together, that is stronger than governments, stronger than military, stronger than anything else. And it's unity. And until the boneheads in the SNP work this out, how I feel as though we're going in a circle every week. How often do we have to tell SNP members, we are not your enemy, we're your friends, and we're trying to help you? But it's like talking to people who are in a cult, like the Moonies. They've really got to, only the membership of the SNP can save the SNP now.
Later on, we're going to be covering the march that took place on Saturday in Edinburgh. And we've got interviews with a lot of SNP people. And we're going to show, because we, as part of that Scotland United, we support that march on this show. We support it. We accept a unity. It would have been nice if they'd invited someone from the ISP or the SSP to speak, or the Alpha Party. It would have been great. It would have brought more people to the crowd. We'll come on to that in a minute or so, Eva. Having listened to your colleagues, and you've been in politics a long time, can you think of anything that frightens the establishment more than unity?
There are two things that frighten the Westminster establishment, and they seem to be the two things that also frighten the leadership of the Scottish Government, and that is A, Scotland United, and B, any mention of Alex Salmond. And there's no getting away from the fact that the Westminster establishment was not afraid from the Scottish independence movement under Nicola Sturgeon's premiership. And as yet, there is no evidence, not a scintilla of evidence, that the Westminster establishment has anything other than the same disdain for Humza Yousaf's style of leadership. And so his inability to unite the movement, which is obvious, is something which will remain his weakness, and it will be a laughing matter for the Westminster establishment. What Westminster needs to see is what they saw in 2014. It's why they wrote the vow. And if you need any evidence to back up the fact that they're not afraid from the Scottish Government and they're not afraid from Humza Yousaf, you need look no further than the SNP's recent re-engagement of Murray Foote, the midwife of the vow, if you like, as their chief executive officer. So if we want to put fear and strike fear into the hat of the establishment, it's very easy to do. All we need to do is unite, because Scotland United cannot be defeated, because Scotland United in the polls would be over 50%, and Scotland United in an election contest would walk the boards. Westminster know this. The SNP knows this. Hamza Yousaf knows this. They all know it. The grassroots know it. SNP members know it. They tell us at meetings. They say it at We Alba book events. They say it at Alba Equalities events. The only opponents of Scotland United are a handful of people in the leadership of the SNP and the Scottish Greens. Everybody else in the independence movement sees the sense in that, because Scotland United, at a general election next year, Scotland would see its independence. We could be declaring independence the day after the general election and then negotiating the independence settlement with the assistance of the international community if we could actually say Scotland United had a majority of the popular vote. And suddenly Westminster would be left with very few friends on the international stage because they would all be lining up on Scotland's side.
Absolutely. We all agree, Lloyd, that unity was required. And we discussed last week Kevin McKenna's fantastic article, but he suggested that the SNP needed a blooded nose, metaphorically speaking, to bring them to their senses. That was the way to do it. How else do we get unity? Because I don't see a road to Damascus moment for any of them. Is it we watch the Rutherglen by-election and they take a beating, and they'll maybe then waking up to the fact that we can't do this on our own. We do need to become united. Is there any other way we can bring unity about?
I can't see it, Rory, but I don't think, I really don't believe that the lesson will be learned when they lose in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. It has to be dealt with as an entirely kind of separate issue. What is going to happen, though, is they are going to take a fairly hefty punch in the coupon next year at the Westminster general election, and that will be primarily because ordinary working people won't come out on the basis of 8 years, 9 years worth of promises that have not been delivered. Turnout will kill the SNP at the next general election. It won't be a huge resurgence of the Labour Party. That's not going to happen. This is going to be one of those cases where the main party gets a slap in the face. Now, I think they'll learn from that, from the general election, but I don't think, because they're too entrenched, I don't think they're going to learn from losing in Rutherglen and Hamilton West. The idea that the current leadership will suddenly have, as Eva described, a Damascene moment and realise that they have to pull together and take their position as the vanguard of the movement, while at the same time developing good bilateral relations with all the other parties. I don't think there is, and it's a bad and an unfortunate thing to have to say, I don't think there's the intellect and the leadership of the Scottish National Party at the moment to make that leap of faith. They don't have confidence in themselves, and they fear that there are smarter people out there. That's a shame for the people of this country.
Yeah, I'm just about to shortly show a video of the Edinburgh March on Saturday. And the ordinary, a lot of SNP people that we interviewed, and we told them it was for the Prism show, and they were willing to give their comments, and they were asked about. But the big speech by Humza, which I find quite extraordinary, is he's going to talk about how terrible Brexit is and how they're going to right that wrong. Between 2016 and 2020, we had all sorts of opportunities and a mandate to do something about that. It seems to me it's almost like the Labour Party are going to abolish the House of Lords, when they're suddenly talking about, oh yeah, we're going to have to get independent to get, back into the EU, which again we could discuss. You're not going to get back into the EU overnight, but it's the wrong topic to be using. He should be talking unity, should he not?
Yes, he should, but it's yet another indicator. I don't know why anyone needs any more indicators that Humza's not what he purports to be, and that the SNP leadership actually are not fighting for independence, because this is just more jam tomorrow. This is the same bleatings. Brexit is bad, Westminster is bad, independence is good. What are you going to do about it? What are you actually doing about it? It comes back down to actions and not words. And I'm quite sure you'll get a lot of empty, glib sound bites from most of the speakers at that meeting. And I'm not even, and I haven't even heard them. I've not watched it. I've not heard it. But I can guarantee you, no one's coming out with a pragmatic plan, and I bet you most of the people in the audience will know that EFTA is instant, it's smart. You know, when the situation changes, so does my opinion. The situation has changed. There are different ways of doing things. We need to be adaptable. This is one of the major benefits of being a small country with a nimble economy, that we can adapt to change, because the world is ever changing. Look what's happening with the BRICS economies. Look at the way that the Western society is being undermined by the usury of the financial capitalists and the big pharma and the military-industrial complex. The fact that we're in a proxy war with Russia, the biggest nuclear power on earth. What the hell are we doing? Who's in charge? The wrong people is the answer, and that's why unification is so important. And I bet you, I mean, I was part of Business for Scotland, okay, and obviously a big part of the SNP. All sensible people now are saying we go EFTA, except the puppets, except those who have a vested interest in retaining a status quo where they get the cream at the top of the milk, you know. And I understand the numbers were low in the March today. Let's see how it's reported. We support it. I would have been there if I could have been. I'd have gone, in spite of the fact that they didn't include any dissenting voices. SNP, get with the programme. Support independence properly by unifying under Scotland United and talking and working along with everybody who has independence for the people of Scotland and our country at their heart. And you know, I know they were a wee bit cheeky as well, and they were brazen, in fact, in some of the requests for finances they made. And
yeah, let's stick that one up. Techie, can you stick up the one where Business for Scotland were telling people to bring folding money with them?
No.
There you go. If you can read that there out, Frank, Phil. Please bring some cash. We prefer donations that fold rather than clink for donations. Look out for stewards with buckets. All donations made to business in Scotland in the day will go towards covering the costs of the event. Not something you ever see it all under one banner. Yes, there are buckets there, but they're not blatant. And the other one from the National, if you may, Techie, where they got offered a marching pack for $29.95. Have we got that one there, Techie? Yeah, there you go. You get a wee flag, a badge. By the way, our T-shirts, the True Scottish Prism T-shirts, folks, are much better quality. And as our badges are much better quality. And you got a wee flag for 30 quid. I mean, it's just that kind of thing detracts from what it's about. What's about the EU, and it's about getting some more money, and it's just wrong.
It sticks in the craw a wee bit, but the problem with the National is it's owned by who it's owned, United Press. It's not. The problem we've got just now is that the union has set up the National, right? It's owned by a unionist organisation. It can purport to support independence by backing the SNP only when the SNP isn't in itself backing independence, because the leadership don't want it. So it's a con game. It needs to pretend to do what it says in the tin, but it's not doing it on the tin. And for example, I see a corrected EU. Back on track, more socialist and anti-war as we once were, with a common market and shared economic values and trade deals for the future. God knows we're going to need it to negotiate with BRICS. Either that or join BRICS. You know, that's what a nimble economy needs to think about. So for me, the SNP leadership are conning the SNP members and the rest of us, because if they really wanted independence, they would be turning up it all under one banner. They'd be supporting Scotland United, which is exactly what we did during the Yes campaign. In fact, let's be honest, it was the SNP's idea. You know, some of the strategists within the SNP, we knew that Alex was a wee bit Vegemite, you know, love or loathe, and the reality is because he's been attacked constantly by the union, and people believe what they hear in the papers.
Because they fear him. They're scared of him.
They are scared of him for good reason. They're not scared of. They're not scared of Nicola, and they're not scared of Hamza.
No.
Tells you all you need to know.
Indeed, we're going to. Before I come to you, Yvonne, we are going to come on because this programme has, over the years, we've had people on here from the SNP, the ISP, the SSP, from no political party. We cover the spectrum, although they say, "Oh, you're just Albists." True, not true. In fact, here we've got 2 SNP and 3 Alba. Sounds fair to me. But I want to cover this march. This march was important, and the coming from the grassroots, a lot of SNP members there. And when they were told that they were being interviewed through a Scottish Prism, they were fine. And they said the same. They want unity. You know, a lot of them went into EFTA. A lot of them, said the EU. But can we run the video here? It's and we'll talk about the march in a second. But I want everyone that was on that march to make sure that the next one of all under one banner in Falkirk, or the one after that in Edinburgh. I'll certainly be the Edinburgh one. I'd have been in the Edinburgh one today, but it's just not always am I able to attend them all. But let's run that video of the people just before the march began in Edinburgh.
Well, hello Prism viewers. Here we are in Edinburgh at the march. There seems to be a lot of saltires. You have a quick look at this. Although we're not moving very far at the moment, but anyway, plenty of support. Beautiful sunny day. Welcome to Edinburgh. Right, folks. What's the reason for you being here today, and what do you think this shows?
I think it shows solidarity. I'm here because I really, really want independence yesterday. And I went on the march in Stirling, which was wonderful and just as hot. So
it's good weather, isn't it?
Very nice.
Nice to meet you. Thank you. So, lots of people here. Good turnout, great day, doesn't hurt. Hello, sir. Right, I'm doing this for Roddy and the team on the Prism show. All right. They want to know, what's your feeling about this? Why are you here?
Why am I here?
Why are you
here?
here?
Same reason everybody else is here.
Which is?
Independence.
Independence. And when do we want it?
Now.
Yeah, I think I agree with you there. Thank you.
Okay, my man.
Hello there.
hello.
Right, say hello to the viewers tomorrow on YouTube. This is YouTube land, apparently.
Hello.
The Roddy at Prism show. He wants to know, what's the feeling? Why are you here?
We're here to get rid of, to run ourselves.
To run ourselves.
And get rid of people that don't really care about us.
And do you think marches are a good thing?
Do you know, it's a joyful occasion.
Good.
The atmosphere is fantastic.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you too.
Hello, folks. Hello, folks. We're recording this for the Prism show, which goes out tomorrow. So, the Prism show on YouTube. Yeah,
Not the Prism show.
No, not the Prism. Right, okay. It's like we're in prison, but no, the Prism show. So, what's going on? What's your feeling about the turnout today, and what do you want to see happen?
Well, I've got the European flag here, so that tells you what I'm interested in. I want us back in Europe in some form.
What about EFTA?
Yeah.
EFTA, a good first step, much quicker.
Anything that brings us closer to our trading partners and our social partners.
Sounds good.
European. Yeah. European, definitely. Yeah, because that lockdown in Westminster has nothing to do with us. Totally.
They're not very good at running economies, are they?
No, they run it well for themselves, but
And so, will you be going on other marches?
oh, aye, we've been in quite a lot.
Have you? All under one banner?
Yeah, we've been to those,
Good.
yeah. We've travelled the length and breadth of Scotland in pursuit of the cause.
Excellent. That's what we want to hear.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you. Hi, folks. Just a wee short interview, right? This goes out tomorrow on YouTube. What's the reason for being here? What do you want to happen?
We want independence.
You want independence?
Yeah.
And will you be marching in future?
Yes, definitely.
Definitely.
Hopefully we don't have to march for much longer.
Good.
That's the hope.
And what's your preference between EU membership over 5 years and EFTA membership in 8 weeks?
In EU membership.
EU membership?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. Hi folks.
Hi.
A wee short video. This is for Roddy, who's sitting sunning himself right now, I believe, in Barcelona. Anyway, sunny here, by the way.
Well, Roddy, I have something for you.
Oh, that looks like a Catalonian flag. Excellent. So, what's your thoughts on today?
I think it's a marvellous event. It just shows the spirit.
And the weather's awful, of course.
Of glorious
Scottish
weather.
sunny weather. And will you be going on other marches?
Yes, of course.
All under one banner?
Possibly.
Good.
Depends where and when.
Good. We've got one in Edinburgh, I believe, soon. And in Falkirk, I think.
We'll see where we get to.
Nice to meet you both.
The sunshine. Take care.
Only, right, hear that, folks? You only want independence if it's sunny. Thank you. I'm going to switch it off.
The consensus there is the ordinary marcher, the ordinary folks, they'll march for all under one banner or Business for Scotland. As long as it's for independence, they'll turn out. This for USNP leadership, and I know some of you watch this, and some of the underlings do as well. There's the message from the grassroots. They want independence. They will march for anyone. They will vote for a Scotland United ticket. Bring us together, Yvonne. It's from the horse's mouth, from the customers, if you like. They're telling us, yes, all together, all united.
Do you know, I've got a lump in my throat just watching that, because everybody wants independence and they all want it yesterday. And, they're marching, and that goofball that Hums has hired as his independence minister, the first thing he came out and said was he didn't think marchers were up to much. And he didn't see the point of marchers. All those beautiful people, apart from David Henry, but all of those people, just all wanting the same thing, and the SNP will just look at them and think suckers, and that's how they treat them, and it's awful. But a point of interest, while I've been down in London, I've seen some of my friends who were in the Labour camp, and they're all worried that there isn't going to be this landslide, and they're really worried that they're going to have to go cap in hand to other parties to secure a coalition, which could be great news for us, because, if Alipur is seen as worthy, gets seats and is seen as worthy to negotiate with, there's no finer negotiator than Alex Salmond, and I bet he would have the wherewithal to get us another referendum. I'm sure he'd have no qualms putting bloody Starmer over a barrel, with or without the Vaseline. So just think that, well, so this is something to think about.
No, I'd rather not, actually. No, I'd rather not think about that at all.
A graphic image, but it's worth considering that whatever happens in the next general election, it could be an independence party holding the balance of power. I mean, God help us if it's the SNP, because Wishart will be there saying he wants to be the next speaker, and there'll be, who wants to be in the House of Lords? That pompous little yeah, him, Black. So, you know, goodness knows what would be on their wish list. And this is the trouble. We can't trust the SNP to negotiate anything because it's all self-interest. It's what can I get out of it, not what can I do for my country.
It's what got me, Eva, was the gentleman with the lovely long beard. When he was, oh yeah, we've gone the length and breadth to Scotland for marches. And oh yeah, I'll be at the next one. These are the same people, you know. You see them in the marches. That's the bit that gets me the most. And when I looked at the lineup, I mean, I've got to admit that, you know, I'm really a wee bit disappointed in Business for Scotland and the SNP that they kept it for, you know, it's only for those that we see as such, you know, the Greens and ourselves. Speakers are, you know, can you imagine how many extra they'd have had if they'd put Alex Salmond in that stand? You know, if they had an opportunity to bring in Colette Walker, she's standing in that seat in Rutherglen. You know, it would have shown that it was unified. I just think they've missed a trick here. That's my criticism of this march today.
I have a huge amount of empathy and support for the marchers themselves. Good on every one of them who turned out to march, because they're marching for the principle that is Scottish independence. And it's why we're here week in and week out, and it's why we do what we do, because we believe in the principle of independence. We believe that independence is a normal state for a country to be in. But in addition to that, we also believe that independence for Scotland will make life so much better for everybody in Scotland, but especially for those who are our most vulnerable. It is those people who are the most vulnerable who are being failed by the lack of a Scotland United strategy. Because those people who are not going to be able to afford their fuel bills this winter, or those who are addicted and cannot get a rehabilitation place, or the children whose educations are being failed, or the single working poor who are skint at the end of the week because they don't qualify for means-tested benefits because they live on their own, or they're scrimping along, supplementing a 0 hours contract wage with universal credit. Those are the people who need to see independence without delay. They don't have the luxury of waiting another few years for another bite at the cherry come the Scottish elections. They need to see it actually now. And those who were marching today were chanting, what do we want? Independence. When do we want it? Now. And in their midst were the people that I think Phil is often referred to as the charlatans who betrayed them and us, who forgot that between 2015 and now, they've had innumerable mandates to get us out. They had Stop Brexit smashed across the side of a bus because that was their priority, to stop the Brexit that the vast majority of the population of England had democratically voted for. You know, we were promised a referendum. We were promised a constitutional convention. Beside me, again, I've got Neil Hanvey's Scotland Self-Determination Bill, supported by, as we've said before, Neil Hanvey, obviously, as the proposer, the presenter, and supported by Kenny McCaskill, Joanna Cherry, Angus Brendan McNeill, Douglas Chapman, and Margaret Ferrier. Every other SNP MP should be supporting this. There is no good reason why not, if they were putting country before party. And I got to thinking, I've been trying to keep up with some of the speeches that have been made today. And what's dawned on me, and I don't mean this in a horrible fashion, it's an observation which is designed to be constructive, not destructive, and I hope that Pete Wishart is watching. What marchers need after a rally, especially when it's for such a dearly held principle as the very future of your country, your destiny, the destiny of your children, the people that you brought into this world, you know, nothing dearer to your heart than your own family and friends. What people need at the end of that march at a rally is they need somebody to speak with fire in the belly, with real conviction and courage and determination. And you have to hear a speech from somebody who convinces every single member of that crowd and every single person watching it on the news or on YouTube or anywhere across social media. You need to hear a voice of somebody that has got power, that has got presence, that's got charisma, that can tell a joke or two, but can also get wired right in and give you the route map to delivering what we want when we want it. And unfortunately, that has not been evident in any of the speeches today. What we've had instead are assurances that independence is inevitable. And we've had a rallying call to provide resources and funds for Believe in Scotland, when what we should have had is the route map to independence. And if Pete Wishart and his friends in the Westminster SNP contingent want to keep their seats in Westminster next year, they're going to have to do Scotland United, because if they don't do it, they run the risk that there are other independent supporting parties that will stand against them. If they do Scotland United, Pete Wishart and his SNP friends will see that they can stand again unopposed by any independence party. If they don't do it, they run the risk that the independence vote is split, and it will be split if the SNP don't do Scotland United.
Yeah.
Think about that one, Pete, when you're having your cornflakes.
Yeah. Yes, Mr. Wishart, I hope you're paying attention, because your seat is vulnerable. Lloyd, all under one banner came out and said, we cannot support or endorse this march for the simple reason that they've tied on EU to it. So it was a march for the EU, something that they believe is for post-independence. They march for independence only. And that's, I think it's a fair point. The kind of anyone who doesn't believe in EU, I don't believe in the EU. I believe in EFTA. I would find it difficult to endorse and support EU. So they're putting a lot. I would still have gone to the march. But there's a lot of people who would say, "Well, no, I'm not going to that because I don't believe in the EU." They kind of narrowed down, and by excluding the other parties, they've also reduced the crowd that they could have had and the success they could have had. So it's a self-defeating, way they work, is it not?
Yeah, but it's back to the world of politics by slogan. You know, independence in the EU has been kicking around for a while now. But as Phil's pointed out, we've all pointed out, when circumstances change, you have to change. The problem is that I think an awful lot of people who want independence, but again who are not caught up in the minutiae and the detail, they just think Europe, EU, that's a good thing. I think the movement has not been particularly active enough in telling people what EFTA is. I mean, we simply have to say things like, why can't we just be like Norway? Norway's in EFTA. Everybody knows the Norwegian equivalence with Scotland. We've been talking about it for decades now. And I think the danger, again, with all of us that are, again, into the detail and the minutiae, we end up talking in kind of code. And the result of that is you ask people whether or not they want to be in the EU or EFTA. They don't really know what EFTA is, but they know what the EU is. And it's also, there's an element of virtue signalling about this. We are not Brexiteers. We are good people. We are worthy because we want to be in the EU. But things have moved on. They've moved on. And the absolute necessity is for the debate to reopen within the SNP. But the problem is, the current leadership of the SNP has not properly examined the options that there are. And, for a country that is not going to be independent by next Friday, we need to be thinking in terms of where the world economy is, where the power blocks are in the future. And to tie ourselves entirely to an EU, which many of our people are not entirely supportive of, is detrimental to the cause. Not in a massive way, but it's detrimental enough that we have, as we saw today, it's a march for Scotland in the European Union, when it should just be a straightforward a march for independence, because that's what the vast majority of people who were there. The EU thing was of secondary importance to the vast majority. Independence is the issue.
I don't understand why they've put in the EU thing. I don't get the bit behind it. I really don't, unless it was to exclude. And while they're talking about excluding, we're talking about inclusion. But even if you talk about the EU, so and as Lloyd said, people don't know the policy and the minutiae of what it is. But one of the other policies that the SNP have is retaining the pound sterling. even though conference voted to have a separate currency, Nicola Sturgeon didn't change that policy, and they kept it. They want to keep the pound sterling. You cannot get into the EU by using someone else's currency, and particularly a currency that's out with the EU. You cannot. So it's a false premise to say, well, we're going to go back into the EU. No, you're not. Not with a pound sterling, you're not.
There are rules of membership, and they've been studied, and we're very familiar with them. EFTA is the obvious step. I do want to be in a Europe, as I mentioned earlier. I say a corrected EU, not the current EU. The EU is being railroaded at the moment and is doing things that I don't support, like supporting the war in Russia with Ukraine. That for me, I see eventually going back into the EU when the situation reverts to the EU becoming anti-war, more socialist, more aligned with our values, where the common market and shared economic values matter, and trade deals work, because the leverage you get with trade deals from an organisation as big as the European Union, it's a massive value. It's a sensible business model. Very sensible, but only if it serves you well in other ways, and that means socially, politically, your principles. And as I said, with the rise of BRICS, we're going to need to stick together, or we join BRICS, because this is the game changer. Another one that's critical, and I know Eva made a very good point on it, is that route map to independence. What's the plan? This is nearly 10 years after 2014. What's your plan, SNP? This is not tangible. What you're saying doesn't make sense. We understand EFTA, and for people who don't know, it was one of the two dominant trade blocs in Western Europe. Lots of countries were in it before they moved on to the European Union. So it's now much smaller, but it's still closely associated, It was 1960 it set up, and it was an alternative trade bloc for those who were a wee bit nervous about going or unwilling to join the EEC at the time. The main predecessor. So, and it was Stockholm or something that was agreed to establish EFTA. And it was signed, and there were 7 countries in it. Austria, Denmark, Norway, Portugal, Sweden, Switzerland, and the UK. We've done it before, and why do you do it? Because it was sensible at the time. We've now reverted to a position where it is again not just smart, but it's essential that we join EFTA as soon as we get independence. From an economic, from a political, socio-political perspective, it's the smart move. And for me to say otherwise and to divide. You look at the actions again of the SNP and the organisers of this watch, and we don't want to be too critical of it, but we must call it out when we see it. It would be remiss of us not to call out Perfidious Albion's work when we see it, and this is divisive. To be exclusively pursuing joining the EU when you know it's at least 5 years away is dodgeball. You're dodging it. Your chancers, you're wide, you cannot be trusted. I believe the people when they say, as I believe, I want into the EU, but I know with a little bit of research that you can't do that right away, and you're conning people to pretend that you can.
Yeah, it is. In fact, it's I think it's 3 months. SSRG found that you can be in 3 months. But that wasn't the only thing that's been happening this week. We've spent quite a lot of time, and the clock, as usual, is going on, Yvonne. But this week, we all know, I think everyone watching knows, that someone who called Patrick Harvey a deviant was eventually, PC Plod worked his magic. They found out who it was, some passerby. They went and found that. They can't find the people who leaked the Daily Record, the Alex Salmon case. They can't find the 600k, but they found a deviant, somebody called someone a deviant. A few weeks ago, we had on Julie Marshall, who was physically assaulted. And this week, Roddy Dunlop put out the actual law that's in place, which shows that Julie Marshall has no cover, but this guy has. And they arrested this guy. This is a waste of time. I mean, if calling a politician a bad name or a name, and you're going to get arrested, it's not a society I think I want to be in. where freedom of speech, whether it be insulting or not, is deemed an arrestable offence?
Well, I called Patrick Harvey a deviant last week, and I'm still waiting for Lily Law to come knocking on the door. It hasn't happened. So, not that I'm begging them to, just sit back and chill. But yeah, but not only did I call Patrick Harvey a deviant, Patrick Harvey has used the word deviant twice in a couple of jokey tweets that he sent out. I think it'll fall under the term of banter. And how many times has banter got people into court? So if it's good enough for Patrick Harvey to use, and it's good enough for me to use, why is this poor sop being charged with calling Patrick Harvey a deviant? And having looked at the dictionary definition, he is a deviant. He's a nasty little piece of work, and he hates women. And not only does he hate women, but the more that he carries on, his toxicity is spreading across Scotland. And now people are seeing Scotland as a nation that doesn't like women. It's crazy, but that's the reputation that we've now got. That it's not a friendly place for women to live. And that's down to Patrick Harvey.
Yeah, well, it's certainly not down to Phil. Yeah, that's for sure. A good man. You would call him out. Would you be upset if you were called it something, a bad name? Would you get them arrested, Phil?
No. I mean, we need a constitution that starts with freedom of speech and allows the right to offend, as you would when discussing any contentious issue. When feelings are high, when people are passionate about issues, and you have to discuss. Adults need to discuss the difficult issues. We need to debate the difficult issues, and we need to be open, honest, and objective about them. And when I say something that, if someone says something I vehemently disagree with, I don't spit the dummy out and run to the police and try to get them deplatformed. Debate is essential in a civilized country. It's a core fundamental, and the right to offend. And the freedom of speech, as I've often said, has been said by many wiser people than I, it's the right with which you protect all other rights. It's that core. It's that important. It runs to the absolute. It runs to the heart of civilization. It really does. If you want a civilized country, you need to be able to speak freely, and freedom of the press is critical, and freedom to say what you believe. And there are limits on this. Don't pretend there's not. You can't incite violence, which surprised me when the anti-TERF sign was voted out as like, oh no, that's not inciting violence. Punch a TERF? How's that not inciting violence? In the last I checked, that was illegal. But anyway, but for me, it comes down to, I think when you listen to the people that know about this, and Roddy Dunlop, as you mentioned earlier, Roddy, quoting him, I mean, he talked about remote hearings are now functioning as the norm. And it's not what it was designed. It's not designed to be normal. It's convenient, and they're still running through it, but they shouldn't run, I'm paraphrasing here, any longer than necessary. And what he says, and he's summing up, was that for those that can access, and I'm quoting, the technology without difficulty, the majority of members of the faculty who responded to a recent survey, along with many solicitors and judges to whom I have spoken, expressed a firm view that the experience of virtual justice is a poor imitation of the real thing. Now, the law is an ass at the best of time, no offence, Eva, but when it's virtual, sling it, mate, sling it.
Quite right. On that, Yvonne, the guy down the road who calls himself Sue something Baker, but he's actually Jimmy Baker or Alec Baker or something, who's done 30 years for violence, who stood out in a public platform and said, if you see punch a TERF, the phrase that fought, he was found not guilty. And yet we've arrested a guy for calling someone in there, Sarah Jane Baker, who's actually a bloke, who's done 30 years in jail, punch a tail, not guilty. He said it. What was it, a joke? I mean, what?
Well, it just shows the unevenness in the road to getting justice, and it's because of incidents like that, and because of incidents with Patrick Harvey, that Scotland is now gaining a reputation as being a place where women are safe, where there are women haters. And Phil's right, we're in grave danger of losing our freedom of speech. Craig Murray, who is known to virtually all Prism viewers, I would think, is on his way to America today. In fact, he should have landed by now, and he's trying to get justice for Julian Assange. And here in Britain, a journalist is locked up for reporting on a criminal offence, and the world is going barking bloody mad. And this is the sort of world inhabited by dingbats like Patrick Harvey and Lorna Slater. I mean, she's supposed to be speaking at the march today. Will she be able to pronounce independence? She's never used the I word once in normal life. And now she's got to stand up in front of on a stage in front of all of these people talking about independence. Goodness only knows what she's going to come out with. Everything she touches, she's like a human wrecking ball. So, as I say, goodness knows. But yes, we are in danger of losing our freedom of speech, and women's rights are already trashed and in the garbage, thanks to people's awards like Harvey.
Yeah, indeed. Eva, I know you feel strongly about GRR, prisons, aggravations, etc.
Yeah, well, when Lorna Slater was speaking in Edinburgh today, she said, Westminster is disrespecting the Scottish Parliament, pushing back the work we are doing for equalities. That one little snippet from her speech shows you just how out of touch the Scottish Greens are with the majority of the population of Scotland, because most of the people of Scotland do not believe that you can actually change your sex. And what Lorna Slater could have been doing today when she was speaking in Edinburgh was explaining how come it is that a man, a trans-identifying male called Paris Green, is currently incarcerated in the women's wing of Saughton Prison. He has been approved for sex change surgery, which was approved for funding in a private clinic but paid by the NHS. It hasn't happened yet, and in the meantime, he has remained in the women's wing at Saughton and is now alleged to have assaulted a prison officer. That may lead to him being moved to a male prison. But you have to ask yourself, A, why was he in the women's wing of Saughton in the first place? Because he is a convicted murderer. And B, how many more trans-identifying males with a history of violence remain within women's prisons? These are matters on which the Scottish Greens and the SNP are very, very, very much out of touch with the views of the Scottish public. And where that takes you on to is actions have consequences. And in the course of the passage of the hate crime bill through the Scottish Parliament, there was justified outcry at the fact that misogyny is not included there. And that is precisely why you have the utterly ridiculous set of circumstances where the police have no discretion but to investigate Patrick Harvey's complaint, because his complaint is that there has been an aggravation of an offence in his context, because he says that it's to do with, I understand, his sexual orientation is his take. It wouldn't be mine, but I think that's his take. And that makes it aggravated. And when there is an aggravation of that nature, the police are required to report and to investigate and report. In the case of Julie Marshall, violence against a woman does not contain an aggravation, and the police accordingly have the discretion, which they do not have in Patrick Harvey's case. They do not require to investigate and report, and they're obviously able to issue a warning. So you can see that women are not, in fact, equally protected under the law. And that, while you might not like it, is exactly as Roddy Dunlop KC has outlined. That is now the law of Scotland, and our legislators, many of whom were on that march today, are responsible for that dreadful, unfair anomaly. They should get it sorted ASAP. And before you start coming back at me with your misogyny review that was done by Helena Kennedy, the hard fact of the matter is everybody knows misogyny should have been included in the hate crime bill. The reason that it wasn't, one can only speculate. You're on mute, Roddy.
I noticed that BBC, who we're talking misogyny, have a new correspondent. What's it? Ellie Gomersall. Is it progressive or are they gaslighting us? Eva.
I wouldn't know where to begin with that, because I understand that the individual concerned considers that he's actually a trans-identifying male who says he's actually female. But whether or not that's the case, I'm not really following why he's always a go-to voice now on some of the BBC programmes. He's the leader of the NUS, I think, in Scotland, and he seems to be pretty popular in the media, but I think it's pretty difficult to understand why that should be, because many of the views that he narrates would, I think, not be the views of many of his members.
Yeah, he's been asked to comment on women's issues. Bizarre. Time clock's kicking on, Lloyd. Here it is. But here's one for you. Absolute belter this week from a walloper, a guy called Sebastian Penn, who says, "Oh, I've got to get this bit so I get it right." He wants to bring back national service because the working classes are in a bit of a state, in his opinion. There we go. The younger people are unhappy, unskilled, unmoored. And the answer is national service for the working class. Of course, they don't mean this for the ones of Eton or Harrow or any of the the Glasgow Academy or Fetis. It's for the peasants, is it not, Lloyd?
Oh, absolutely. But obviously, he got tipped off that Grant Shapps was getting the Defence Secretary's job. This is perfect for Grant Shapps. Absolutely perfect. Look, there's a serious element that's not being talked about in this, and I think this is creating the ground for something. The British Army is having extreme difficulty recruiting. Yep. Extreme difficulty, particularly recruiting people from the British Isles. You'll see even from the so-called Royal Regiment of Scotland, I think it's 20 or 25% now of the body of men that's the Royal Regiment of Scotland come from Samoa, Fiji, and other former dependencies and former colonies of the United Kingdom. Now, the principal reason that this idea has come up is because this Tory government is slowly but surely shedding its clothes and telling us and making it clear to us that it is even considerably more right-wing than Thatcher's government was. And it's shedding its skin and things are emerging. But I would love to see the attempt at reinstituting national service. I think that would make independence, certainly for Wales and Scotland, come a hell of a lot quicker.
Oh, for sure. I've got to say, Phil, before I move on to your question about your girlfriend, Penny Mordaunt, she's all in favour of it, You should maybe have a word with your bird. But this week, the last question to you, Phil. This week there was some very bad news come out on drug and alcohol-related deaths. And one of the worst figures I saw was that the deaths from alcohol for women is increasing. It's really quite a worry. I put out a tweet again. Holmes was saying, "Oh, Westminster stopping us having drug consumption rooms." And as I said to him, do it. Just do it. What are they going to do? Are they going to ground you for a week, Humza? Are they going to refuse to send you to the Christmas party for the Foreign Office? Invade Scotland? Just do it. It's worked in other countries' drug consumption rooms. Just do it.
Yeah, do something, because it's horrific. Our people are suffering, and it's on the increase. Substance abuse, but particularly drugs. And the SNP have made a great song and dance about what they're going to do about it, but it's getting worse, and it's not working, what you're doing. And it's not difficult to figure it out. There's a I've mentioned it before, but there's a phenomenal blog that Joe Rogan does with a English-Swiss reporter, journalist called Johan Hari. And they look and analyse what the Portuguese in Switzerland have achieved and what they've done and how they go about it. It also goes into the horrific story on the war on drugs and understanding what that means. That was invented by a guy called Harry Anslinger, and what he did to Lady Day. You know, the tragic story of Billie Holiday and this nasty piece of misogynist, racist crap that was Harry Anslinger. He took over the prohibition department just as it was being lifted in America and invented the term war on drugs to keep his department going, to retain a power base and keep the numbers up. The war on drugs is a con, just as the war on terror is. It makes money and it does not address the problems they purport to deal with. The answer is very simple. You spend the money you would do fighting drugs on the people who are victims of drug and substance abuse. Fight the poverty, not the drugs.
Correct.
It's not difficult.
Correct. The clock's beating us as always, folks. I just want to say a couple of things. All of you who turned out on yesterday's march in Edinburgh, I congratulate you. I applaud you. And I suggest to you, please turn up, and especially to the SNP Business in Scotland folk, the Green Party. Turn up for the next All Under One banner. Let's have a huge crowd in Falkirk. Let's have a huge crowd in Edinburgh, the big one. That was the last, remember, a couple of 100,000 or something were on the streets back in 2019. Let's get back to those huge numbers. And I should just say, from the point of view of Tour Scottish Prism, thanks to your generosity and that flagship media, we will be doing a series of live shows. The first one being in Edinburgh on the Friday before that's the 6th. No, the 5th. The march is on the 6th or the 6th, I can't remember. 6th and 7th. So on the Friday night in St Mary's Church in Broxton Street, the gang will be there. Hopefully Phil might be too. And we'll be doing a live audience show there on the Friday. And we'll be doing one in Glasgow before the Alapa conference. And there is, of course, the Falkirk March for All Under One banner. And if you could stick up that meme techie before we go to advertise the next march, which is Falkirk, I believe. There you go, the 23rd of September. I think that's the next one. So all of you, turn up. I'll be at the Edinburgh and Glasgow marches, and I hope to see all of you there. Until we all see you again, please, please, please. Oh yeah, right before I forget, my good pal Tommy. We've got George Square. We've got, of course, Hope Over Here on the, is it the 16th of September, the 18th of September? He tries to do it round about the 18th, near to the 18th, the Saturday nearest to the 18th as he can. So please, turn up for that as well, Hope Over Fear. Well, it's called Scotland United now. Okay, till we see you next week? No, because next week we'll be doing a midweek show, myself and Lloyd will be doing one on multipolarity and the present state of the conflict in Ukraine. So till we see you midweek, take care.
Through a Scottish Prism, the programme that is unapologetically pro-Scottish independence and anti-Westminster rule. Everything we say here is viewed through a Scottish prism. Brought to you by Barhead Boy.